Okay, Blue Liner back with you. And of course, that was Mr. Paul Hackett's contribution and his thoughts on 2023-24 for the Caps. So we're going to move along. We had one other loyal participant wanting to share his thoughts on the past year for the Caps, and that was Stewart Small. Of course, he's been one of our earliest supporters and joiners and participants in the show. Haven't had him on for a while, so it's good to hear from him. So here is Mr. Small and I sharing our thoughts about what happened for the Caps this past year. Hi, welcome in, and this is the Blue Liner on Point back with you with another guest for postseason interviews. Happen to have with me a gentleman who's been on with us a few times before. His voice should be somewhat familiar if you're a regular listener. It is Mr. Stewart Small. Stewart, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a while. Missed you.
Yeah, too long. It's good to be back.
Yeah, great. Been wondering what your take has been on this team that has brought us all along on this crazy roller coaster ride of a season this year. So, what did you think now that it's all over with for this year?
Well, I've been saying this for a while. This is definitely a team in transition. You have a new coach in Spencer Carberry, who, by the way, I think should have gotten some consideration for the Jack Adams Award.
I could not agree more.
Yes. He did a wonderful job with what he had. You've got the core that's starting to age out, and then he's starting to bring some of the young guns, if you will, the new young guns, I guess I should say, who are coming from Hershey and now are getting their taste of NHL hockey, both regular season and postseason. So it's definitely a team in transition. But now, having said that, what Coach Carberry was able to squeeze out, I thought gave rise to some things to look forward to in the future. We definitely have some pieces. Of course, now these pieces are going to have to play together more and more, learn each other, as well as learn what it takes to consistently do well at this level night after night after night. You had your ups and you had your downs, which you would see in a young team that's trying to find itself, as well as a team that has veterans who could very well be on their last legs. So I think given all that, this team definitely exceeded expectations by squeaking into the playoffs the way it did. Granted, once we got there, getting swept by the Rags was no fun, but at the same time, they are arguably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the game right now. So really, they gave us more than what we could hope for in terms of a team that's made up the way it is now. And there are going to be some rough patches. We may not see Nicholas Backstrom again. We may not see TJ Oshie again. And I said it earlier before he went on his hot streak. Alex Ovechkin may be on his last legs. Hate to say that, hate to throw that out there, but signs are indicating that unless we can get him to ride a camel again, then maybe he might turn in another 70-goal season next year. But this is a team, as I'll say before, and I'll say it again, it's in transition. There are going to be some growing pains, and we just have to be patient. We just have to hope the coach, Carberry, has learned from this, and then he can add a few things, and we actually have to hope that the general manager can fortify the cupboard, if you will, through free agency over the summer, as well as the drafting, as well as the gentleman that we did draft this past draft, if you will.
Yes. Now, you hit upon something a little bit earlier. You said you hit upon something that is probably the key to this team getting better over time, and that's consistency. And of course, just now you spoke of, well, the task in front of them, which is to improve them further still, whether it be through the draft or free agency or some sort of combination of the two or some other method of improving the team. Given how far they've come and yet how far they need to go. As you said, a team in transition. Um, Perhaps I'm not going to ask for a name, but maybe the type of player or position or some sort of glaring need. What do you see as far as something that they ought to be adding as an immediate need?
Definitely speed. This is a very slow team right now. They need more speed, and they also need a top six center. We also need to work on face-offs. Getting killed in the face-off circle too often. Outside of Boyd on the fourth line, our centermen need to do much better on face-offs, and we desperately need a top six center who can pivot and create plays for our wingers and goal scorers. And it
Yes,
was I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to also add, I think that the absence of Nicholas Backstrom definitely hurt Alex Ovechkin in that they had a great chemistry together that is very hard to match. And God bless Connor McMichael. God bless Dylan Strome. They have a ways before they can be placed in the same air as the aforementioned Nicholas Backstrom. However, having said that, Strom is definitely a great acquisition. I can definitely see him doing some great things for this team and becoming a very valuable member of this team.
yes, and I think fortunately or unfortunately, the realization that Backstrom was just simply not fit to play the game was a revelation in and of itself. But as you pretty much said, that led to kind of the search for who would be Alex Ovechkin's setup man, and that kind of, I don't know if that contributed to his struggles or perhaps he wasn't in 100% game shape himself, but that certainly didn't help things early on. So yeah, I think I would agree with you. Maybe certainly a top six center, um, a setup man who can help out as far as that goes, and maybe someone who simultaneously can help out at the faceoff dot. Um, transitioning from the forwards, what do you think of the defense?
There are pieces there. John Carlson, I hear a lot of criticism about him, but by the same token, he was arguably our best defenseman out there. He led the team in ice time. He was down there on the ice during crucial situations. I think he can still contribute to this team. I'm not ready to say he's a Rod Langway, nor am I definitely ready to say that he's on his last legs, although you could argue that he's getting close. But I think that right now they need to rely on him, and he needs to take a step up to do what he can to help this team. Maybe he can't be the one to jump into the play and try to get those extra goals, but his presence showing what a defenseman needs to do, to be successful is going to trickle down to the younger guys like Sandine, like the other person I can't remember. But no, he's really the defense. It centers all around him, and it also centers to try to bring the guys up like Sandine. I think Sandine is another good acquisition that is going to help the squad in the long run.
Yes, definitely. I think the other younger defenseman you were thinking of might have been Alex Alexiev,
Thank
uh,
you, thank you, thank you.
who
Alexiev. Who else?
who
Doggone it. Who
definitely
else?
grew into his role. There was also Vincent Iorio who got called up, but unfortunately got injured not long into his stint. But he's certainly someone to keep an eye on in the future.
Indeed.
Um, Martin Faravari has
Thank
proved to
you.
be very serviceable as well. In my opinion, he's Dmitry Orlov 2.0. And the thing that I like that he started to showcase towards the end of the playoffs was that shot of his,
Right.
um, much like Dmitry Orlov used to do. was unleashed that shot from the point. So I was very glad to see that. So while the future's bright, like you said, I do see a place for Carlson, who admittedly I wasn't. If we were speaking 2, 3 seasons ago, I would not have I would not be very high on him myself, as I
Hmm.
am now. I think he's grown into his job a lot better. He's become a lot less of a liability. That was my main beef with him.
Right.
Um, he's learned a lot better how to take care of his own end. And of course, as we learned season before this, when he went down with that horrible injury, there really isn't much of an offensive attack if you don't have him to start it with. Um, so I don't see I'm not as adamant on maybe dealing him, and I don't really see them making any sort of transaction involving him in the future unless it's something they can't refuse. But my thing with the defense has to be that the right hand side, all the right handed defensemen, um, they have to get, and this goes back to what we said about the forwards. If it's somewhere else that needs to get younger, it's that particular part of the team. You have Nick Jensen, who's over 30, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, who's also over 30, and
Hmm.
if I'm going to be honest, I think unfortunately their production, if not their serviceability, has declined a bit. I don't know if you'd agree, but I think if in addition to that top six forward, something they really should consider is some way to get younger on that part of the defense. I think that's
Absolutely.
also
Absolutely.
crucial to their improvement. And we talked about Coach Spencer Carberry. I think someone else on the coaching staff deserves a bit of a mention, and that's Mitch Love, who was in charge of the defense. I think his teaching benefited the entire core, especially Carlson. I would say he deserves some of the credit in their improving over time over this season goes. Okay, so we've talked about the forwards, we've talked about the defense, so that leaves something of an elephant in the room. I don't know if you saw the article that was posted, but it's been suggested, and I'm doing the air quotes with my fingers that nobody can see,
Hmm.
that a possible deal that is just an idea at this point, not even a rumor, is Darcy Kemper for the Kings' much maligned and trouble forward Pierre-Luc Dubois, who let's just say has not quite lived anywhere near up to his contract, let alone expectations. Um,
Right.
would you say at this point that it is an absolute must that they make some sort of deal to get Kemper onto another team?
I would absolutely agree with that. I don't know if Mr. Latois would be the one to do it, though. I'm not sure if we want his, for lack of a better term, head casedness in our locker room. But absolutely, if you could move Kemper for a defenseman, as we were talking about earlier, a youngish defenseman, and maybe even a top six center, I would definitely say take the move. If it's something that makes sense, if it's something that's feasible, if it's a player who doesn't have a history and seems ready to get out on the ice and show what he can do here in Washington, someone who wants to be here, obviously.
I would agree with most of that. My uh, point of view is that I think Kemper is capable of something of a bounce back year. I don't know that he would have enough to get the starting job back, but I think he's capable of proving that he's at least worthy of being a 1A. But that said, as you said, if there is a deal that comes along that definitely improves the team that involves him, I don't see where the cap should say no, and especially if it's one that improves the team and one that doesn't involve too much of a cost in return, like say too much of a salary retention. I've mentioned this several times, but it's um, there's a rule in place that you can only retain the salaries of 3 contracts on your team at any given point in time. And by contrast, Mike Greer over in San Jose is really handcuffed in that team. His team has already hit that limit. I He probably didn't have much choice because he had so many big contracts to deal with. So to be fair, but by contrast, you have that, and we're going to have 2 dead contracts that are going to fall off here. So Brian McClellan has certainly a lot more wiggle room, but that's for those that complain about the job that our GM has done, it could be a lot worse if you compare those situations. Um, so, with one eye towards the future, I'm not going to ask you to evaluate the draft, so we'll just jump ahead to what next season will be like. Do you see this team either pretty much staying the same or perhaps even taking another step forward next season?
I think it really depends on what takes place over the summer, how they do in free agency. Obviously, the pick we get, and I believe that the draft lottery is this evening, if I'm not mistaken. I
That
don't
is
believe the
correct.
yes, I don't believe that the pick we get is someone who's going to help us immediately next year. I would be curious to see what steps they take with free agency, but I think most importantly, the young guns that we have been talking about, Faravari, Iorio, Dylan Strome, Rasmus Sandin, they have some NHL experience under their belts now. And Alexei Protas, I don't want to forget him.
Yeah.
Let's see now what they can do by taking the next step. Obviously, I don't, as much as I would love to see it, I don't think I'll be taking off for work for a Stanley Cup parade next June. But I think what we'll see, what I want to see, is improvement. We already have a team that's going to fight every night. We already have a coach who is going to bring, squeeze out everything he can in terms of what he has. Now that these guys have gotten their first taste, if you will, of playoff experience, I want to see them hungry. I want to see them work to get to that next level. Obviously, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but what I want to see next year is I want a team that is going to fight every night. I want to see a team that just shows in little ways that may not necessarily show up on the scoreboard or in the standings, that it's taking the baby steps or maybe even the giant steps to get to that level where we've become accustomed to seeing the Caps making appearances in the playoffs for, and I'm exaggerating, 20 straight years. So really, I think we're going to see a team that's somewhat in the middle, that may overachieve, that's still really finding itself. I know that's kind of a long answer there, but I think that we're going. I think that I'd be surprised if I didn't see at least some improvement in different areas.
No, you hit on it. Quite a few valuable talking points there, I think. And as you were going over them, something came to my mind. You mentioned the fact that we're in DC when it comes to, at least when it comes to the hockey team, we've kind of been used to success. So I kind of want to ask you, since you've had your eye on this team for, well, just about as long as I have. Not to age ourselves here, but so we both seen the Rock the Red era and what Ovechkin can do and how this game is uh, won. And I think a lot of the fan base got used to all of the games where they'd win by 3, 4, 5, 6 goals. I think we're entering into another type of era where they don't quite win that way.
Right.
Would you say that from a fan's point of view that would be uh, that you'd be disappointed in that? That'd be less entertaining, not worth the money to see them. What would be your take on that?
Well, it might be quote unquote less entertaining. However, you have to remember we don't have the core that we did. And I go back to something that I had said on one of your earlier podcasts, in which I said the hazards of being a Stanley Cup champion is that the fans get spoiled and they think, oh, it's going to be like this all the time. Now we are in a phase where we don't have those goal scoring threats right and left, where you've got the Ovechkin line, but then if you shut them down, then you've got to worry about the second line. And then the third line is coming up and doing things, and boom, here comes Devani Smith Pelly. Suddenly he's finding the back of the net. This is, again, I go back to it, a team in transition. We have pieces, but now we have to put those pieces together and possibly bring in some more pieces that will be able to, if you will, pick up the torch. And while I understand, I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that Ryan Leonard went back to college, but by the same token, let him get his experience up there. Let him play with the guys that he's used to and let him continue to get stronger, and then he can be ready for NHL action the year after next or the year after that. Again, team in transition, got to be patient, got to hang in there. We're not going to have the 7-0, 6-0, 10-0 scores that we're used to, but I think you're going to see a team that's going to work hard, a team that is going to get better, albeit in a slow way, and we just have to buckle up and ride out the storm.
And I couldn't have said it better, Stuart. I don't think as fans we can really ask for more. Like it or not, the the age where we got used to seeing the Caps outshoot and outscore the other team. Unfortunately, I think we've left that behind. Not that this team isn't capable of doing that on any given night, but given the way it's built now, maybe not so much. I think, like you said, we should be pretty happy with any consistent effort, any a hardworking effort that results in a win. And if it's close, so be it. Your team does all it needs to win the game. That's really all we could ask for. So I'm in total agreement with you in that. Maybe it's not as entertaining as watching six goals go in for your own side, but the result's still the same. So something else I just thought of. You mentioned Ryan Leonard, um, and we talked about potential transactions involving the team. Well, first I need to mention for those who may not be aware, Ryan Leonard was named to this summer's Team USA, who will battle for the IIHF World Championship in about a week. I think it's a week or so. They start that tournament. So he will be getting his first taste playing against professionals. So that'll be some valuable experience. But the question I want to ask you, Stuart, is put yourself in a general manager's shoes. Someone from another team comes up to you and says, I am prepared to offer you my most talented forward who's proven to put 20, 30, 40 goals in the net. But my price is Ryan Leonard. What do you say?
It really would depend on the forward. But having said that, this is a team in transition. We're looking for the young guys to come up. Remember when we first got Alex Ovechkin, his team was still at the bottom of the league. When we first got Nicholas Backstrom, team was still at the bottom of the league. You have to build. You can't just lust after another team's superstars the way the Washington football team did when Dan Snyder owned the team, which he went after every free agent he could find. I mean, this person may put butts in seats, this person could move more jerseys, but the bottom line is this. Does your team get older because of him? Does your team mesh with this person's abilities, does this person's abilities translate into what this team tries to do or how this team plays? The way I see it, I would stick with Mr. Unless it's like a really, really, really huge superstar. I would stick with Mr. Leonard only because you have his rights. You can bring him up slowly, and he can learn the system on his own instead of getting, excuse me, a crash course with a new team that he may not necessarily know about.
I couldn't have said it better, and I think the example by contrast with the football team was spot on. Um, that that's probably the path that the Capitals don't want to follow, because they really haven't had much success by going on that path. So I think you're dead on right. It is any potential transaction that, well, for my money anyway, any potential transaction that where Ryan Leonard is the asking price, for me is an immediate no, unless it is something that absolutely can't be refused. I think the only name, well, the only two names that come to mind are Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid. I don't think anybody's going to be offering those two. So that's that's where I'm at for that. So yes, I do think I agree with you. I think Ryan Leonard is very much a guy you want to build your team around, and should be thought of as untouchable. And like you said, just bring him along at the pace that works for him. And whether it's next year or the year before, it won't be really won't be long before we finally get to see him and what he can do. It'd be nice if he could finish his if Alex Ovechkin could finish his career alongside him, but not going to ask for any big miracles, just as long as everything develops at his own pace. All right, Stewart, this was great. Unless there's anything else you can think of that has come to mind about this team that you might have thought of or have been thinking of that we haven't hit upon.
Nope. Just want to reiterate that we're obviously in transition, and this team needs to go slowly, much like the aforementioned Washington football team under its new management. Get the pieces in place. Don't get crazy. Work your system. Trust the process, quote unquote, and go from there.
Absolutely. Okay, so as you mentioned, we have the draft lottery coming up. It's good to have our team not involved in that, at least for this year. But I will be watching that intently. So you on the other side of the speakers, the earbuds, by the time you listen to this, be interesting to see how that has panned out. So other than that, great season. Great talking to you, Stewart. Thanks again for doing this. It's been too
Pleasure.
long. We definitely got to get you back on sometime this year.
Absolutely. It would be a pleasure.
All right, sir. Thanks for doing this. And for you, the listener, we will be back anytime soon if there's a breaking development as far as a huge transaction with the team. But other than that, we'll see you soon. Okay, and that was Mr. Stewart Small with his thoughts on the past season and what's to come with our Washington Capitals. So we're going to roll right into our next segment with our other guest who lent his thoughts to what happened and what is to be for our Washington Capitals. That's Mr. Paul Hackett, and so we're going to get into that for you right now. Hello, Caps fans. Blue Liner back here. So I promised some input from at least few of our loyal listeners. I got one on the line in this companion episode now. Hopefully familiar to some of you, at least on the Facebook page, in the chat room, regular contributor, great supporter of the show, Mr. Paul Hackett. Paul, how you doing this evening?
Doing well, Gil. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Love to get the input and feedback of the listeners, fellow Caps fans, see how they did here. So kind of bummer the way the Caps went out, but question that comes to my mind real quick is did they meet your expectations? Did you think they were what happened was how it played out? Did you see that coming?
No. Short answer. The way the season started and the way it progressed, it really was a battle up until pretty much our last game of the season to get into the playoffs. So, no, by the time they won that game against Philadelphia and sealed the deal, we were playing with house money at that point. Certainly the getting swept and not putting up a better showing against the Rangers, although some of those games were impressive, I thought, for the resilience of the team. And that's really the word I feel marks this season is resilient. These guys never gave up. I never saw the team quit. I think a lot of that goes to the tightrope that head coach Spencer Carberry had to walk with the veterans and the young guys. I thought he did a great job because of it. But yeah, just the way they even fought down the stretch there, winning their last 3 games against two really good teams in Boston and Tampa Bay, to get to needing the final game against Philadelphia. So resilient, definitely. This season has resilience written all over it.
Yeah, and so one of the criticisms of the team, of course, was, well, they don't score enough goals. There's no way that this type of style can, they can stay competitive. Other than the resiliency, what did you see was kind of the secret to their success?
Boy, that's the weird thing too, is the goal differential. They either were getting their doors blown out or they were winning the close 1-point games. It was almost very very Jekyll and Hyde-ish. Yeah, and the scoring. I mean, obviously the ones who are losing 7-2 and 7-3. Yeah, you're not getting enough goals, even if you're getting outscored that much. That was an odd thing. We saw after the All-Star break, Ovechkin kind of caught fire, and his tallies went up. I think that probably inspired some of the other players around him. But it certainly wasn't from lack of trying. There was LaPierre. God love the kid. How long did it take him to finally sink one in the playoffs? It was that beautiful goal too, that in Game 4, I think it was. But he must have, 4 or 5 shots of his were if 3 millimeters or whatever. So yeah, the offense definitely was lacking. I don't know enough about coaching and the X's and O's to be able to discern the issue, but it was obvious. Ovechkin's production falling off there towards the end of the season was odd. My wife and I were speculating whether maybe he had some medical treatments while he was away from the team during the break that were then kind of wearing off. She specifically mentioned something like an epidural. I'm sure TJ Oshie had, with his back problems, I would be surprised if he had them. She said that's something that they can give you that lasts usually for 2 or 3 months if they're successful with them. So, something, maybe he had some kind of treatment that was then wearing off by the end of the season. He remains an enigma. We saw that during the Cup year when everyone was writing him off at the beginning of that season too.
Yeah.
Or before that season, I guess, because he started out. I think wasn't that the season he started out with like 3 hat tricks in the first 10 games or something. I remember that season.
Yeah. So we met up at the one game the other night. How many games you get out to per season?
My wife and I had bought. Originally, we were just buying single games, and then we bought a partial plan a few years ago that we kept with. I guess the first year that was 2019. So hey, welcome to the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that ended up kind of carrying over to the following season because they gave us a good deal on. We actually missed our final game because of the pandemic, because of not having fans, and so then when they started letting fans back in, they gave us a good deal on that season's games and tickets for the playoffs that season. And then after that, we kind of kind of felt that it was just, we'd prefer, she's kind of a homebody, so we felt we'd just go ahead and get the occasional game ticket again. So last season we only went to the one game, but we figured if we're going to do that, we'd go to a game to see the new phenom Connor Bedard there with the Blackhawks.
Yep.
So while I don't think the Blackhawks themselves were that impressive, my wife didn't think Bedard was. I said, honey, the guy's a rookie. Check out his ice time. I mean, every time I looked, he was on the ice skating and performing. So, yeah, he might not have been able to shine, but that was more, I think, because of the Blackhawks themselves, the cast around him.
Yeah. I think his future's kind of bright, but his being on a really bad team certainly doesn't help. But I think he'll be fine. So when you go to a game live, do you notice things that are a little bit easier to see, or some maybe stand out a bit more versus watching a game at home?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever thought about that. Sometimes I'd have to say yes, because a lot of times, I would answer yes because the camera angles switch so much. A lot of times when they have the pucks trapped against the boards there, they'll go for the tight shot on the glass of the players, and you can't necessarily see what's going on behind it. So, maybe somebody's out of position, the puck's on the boards, it kicks out to the guy that's not getting covered because somebody came out of position and that guy scores. A lot of times you don't get that same vision except on the replays. Seeing it live, you can, maybe yell to your wife ahead of time, that guy's wide open, oh my God. So yeah, the live experience does give it affords you the chance to see the whole playing field instead of what the producer or director
right
camera shot. Which, I mean, nothing against them, it's a different medium, but yeah.
All right. Totally understandable. So
I like it too. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I do like it too,
go ahead.
because what I can notice then too is how they cycle, how the players are cycling. If they get a chance to get into a good situation, you can see that a lot more. You can see the interplays, the little picks they can put up on each other and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to follow when you get the whole ice.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff there. So going back to how they did this year, what would you say was the one really bad thing that, whether it was a player's performance or something in general was really, really bad, and either may have cost them if it was worse, might have cost them the playoffs or whatever. But something you saw during the season that or if there's more than one, then more than one. But something you saw that went on that you didn't like, you really didn't like about this team this year.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, Ovi showing his age, I think he got caught several times during the season, and certainly twice, 2 games in a row, leading directly to shorthanded goals, because he doesn't have that get up and go anymore. He's still a very physical player. I was watching him put people in the boards all season. He seems to glide a lot, which is usually an indication of how the legs feel. Once again, not criticizing. I mean, God love the man. How long's he been playing? He's done what he has for this franchise. We all want to see him get the record. However, he can be a liability. And we saw in the playoffs twice a very, very, very bad liability. And I think that the game 4, getting bump down the line and the less ice time, I think, spoke to that. I think it was mutually agreed. I think Alex is the first one to say, whoa, okay, maybe I shouldn't be out on the ice so much, especially in the playoffs, because so much is riding on it. You don't have the same 82 games where, oh, wow, that was a slip up or, whatever. And when it happens back to back like that, as the captain, you should be able to check yourself and say, hey, guys, I'm taking a knee, or I'm taking a rest for a bit. And I think the team rallied around that. I don't know if that was said in the locker room or anything, but I think the team jumped at the chance to show their captain that they had his back. And even though they lost game 4, like I said, look at how they played.
Yeah.
Nobody expected them. I mean, this is the President's Trophy winning team that they're playing against. Basically, the team with the most wins in the league, and they got jobbed. What did you expect?
Yeah.
But they didn't give up, and they played hard throughout. So,
you know what?
If there's any. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't want to lay it like all on Ovechkin. Certainly there's others. That's just the most glaring.
Right.
Oshie not being able to play has an impact on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all saw last season or the season before last season when Carlson went out with his injury, how significant of a defender he was and is to the team. I had been kind of critical of the man up until I watched, the team perform after he was off the ice, and then how it responded and how the defense played once he came back. So is he the greatest? No. Is he the best? No, but he's pretty damn good. But yeah, I mean, those guys, they're getting up there in age. Wilson seemed to be kind of a non-factor at times, especially during the playoffs. I understand you don't want to, you don't want to do too much, but he took a really stupid penalty there at the end of the period that led to, a goal. So just stuff like that, especially from the veterans. I understand health's an issue always. So those things, but I thought overall the young guys played exceptionally well. And, you can't fault the veterans too much when the age is Father Time's undefeated. So if you have lingering injuries, they're going to linger.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting back to the thing you said about Ovechkin, that puts a lot into perspective. I kind of like how you mentioned the fact that the other guys on the team probably use that as a rallying point, because at least in game 4 anyway, because he was painfully invisible in that game. And it just seemed like the rest of the team figured out, okay, well, we're not going to have everything that he usually brings, so we have to lift our game up. And it gives me a lot of hope for this team going forward, because they might not have matched up very well against the Rangers, but you got to commend their effort, because that was they played very much like they wanted not only to win that game, but to keep the series going for as long as they could.
Yes. It reminded me, it harkened me back to the first Stanley Cup run that the Caps had against the buzzsaw that was the Red Wings of the 90s. And my whole thing that time was everybody knew they weren't going to win. I just wanted them to win one game, just don't let them get swept. And they got swept. And it was the same this season. I didn't expect them, to beat the Rangers, but I wanted them to at least win one. And, they didn't, but they were in every game and they played every game.
Yeah, I didn't think. I'm with you there. I didn't think they'd advance, but just as long as they kept up with them, and mentioned in an earlier episode that they for the most part they did, or at least 5-on-5, the numbers bear out that they did. And what really killed them was, taking all those, untimely penalties. And it wasn't just Wilson. It was up and down the lineup. It was a lot of people. And it just, you can partially chalk it up to bad officiating, but it was just, not as much discipline as you'd like. But I think that was part of it was, some of the younger guys needing to learn how to play in the playoffs and what it takes. And if there is a takeaway, there's that they've got back that experience. They know now what you got to come with to not only just make it, but, stay in the playoffs. So hopefully that'll translate over into next season for them. So, all right. So lots of good stuff so far. So I think one other thing I'd like to get from you. I don't know how much you've had a chance, given that it hasn't been all that long since the season ended for the Caps. But do you have any ideas as far as I don't know, maybe about a specific player or a move or something that the Caps ought to give consideration to as far as improving the team next year and beyond?
To be quite honest, no. I haven't really read up on who's available and who we have that may be either restricted or unrestricted. But more than that, I'm not a GM either. I'm not a coach and I'm not a GM. I'm a fan. I make really stupid observations sometimes. But I think my liking would be to incorporate more of the young guys, bring these young guys along. I was, as you said, the playoffs were great experience for these guys. Having some of these guys up in the system as long as we did this season. What do you have, like 6 or 7 NHL playoff debuts this season? I think for our guys.
At least,
a lot of guys. Yeah.
A lot of them, yeah.
But I like, the young defenders. I think they're just they need some seasoning. Same with the offense. Once again, I'm not a coach, so I probably sound stupid, but that's just, I like all of our guys. I think they've got really good chemistry, and I think that the biggest thing that points to that is the fact that they were sellers at the deadline and yet seem to improve. Certainly this team was a better team, and I chalk that up once again to Coach Carberry than last year's team. And Laviolette's currently in, the front seat of the Rangers. So I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but he wasn't able to get what Carberry's been able to do. And I think a lot of that has to go to it seemed like Laviolette didn't want to play the younger guys or didn't know how to incorporate them. And, Carberry, I said it before, I don't know anything about coaching, but the way he has been able to get the young guys to buy in, get the veterans to buy in, get everybody on the same page. It was rough. You saw the beginning and throughout the season. But, hey, man, I just saw the sun come up. It's not going to do anything else but keep going up in the sky, getting brighter and brighter. So, I don't know specific players or what may or may not happen. Some of that, too, I think depends on specifically Oshie and his decision, whether he thinks his back's going to cooperate. I haven't heard any scuttlebutt about Carlson, but he is also a year older. Backstrom has to make some kind of decision. So I definitely think that, another center and another defender, whether you get, I think probably you'd want veterans. I think that is something that would be something that would be helpful with these younger guys too. Now that the core is kind of broken up with Backy being out and Oshie and Carly both taking leaves, and Wilson was out for an extended time, you get used to it. And I think this season we got used to the fact that Ovi has now I don't want to say hit the wall, but he's at the point where we can see his age a lot more. It's much
Yeah.
more readily apparent. And so, yeah, get some younger but some veteran guys in there maybe if you think it's worth it. Max Pacioretty, I wouldn't say he was a liability necessarily. I remember he scored some pretty good goals at times. But I'm not a coach, and it didn't really seem like Edmondson did much. Mantha, I think, was a healthy scratch from Vegas the other night. So once again, addition by subtraction maybe at the deadline.
Yeah, that's what seemed to happen. And it resulted in, a lot of the younger guys, getting that much more ice time. But given all that and the situations that you mentioned, there's going to be, I think the Caps are going to be expected to. They may not, but at least dip a foot into the free agent pool and find out how the waters are and test all that, see what's available. I don't think there's a whole lot out there. The biggest name I saw on the list was Steven Stamkos, but I could go either way on him. Yeah, would he be a great addition? Yeah, but the man has also had several knee surgeries. So even though he keeps on having these great seasons, how much more in the tank does he actually have? So
True.
I'm not. I don't know about that. I'm kind of torn between, okay, let's make a splash and throw in a big name, and let these guys that are starting to come into their own, give them a chance to ripen even more with the big club. So that's where I am. But like you, I'm neither coach nor GM, so right now at least it's too early for me to speculate. But that's where this team seems to be. All right, good stuff, Paul. Just one last question for you. Do you think we can expect to see you out at a game at least once or twice next season?
Definitely, and we did skip one big elephant in the room. I can't believe both of us forgot about it.
Oh,
how about goaltending?
Go right ahead. Bring it up. Floor's yours.
How about goaltending? What do we do there? It seems like every season we've got issues.
And that's okay. So any regular listener of the show would know that that's been a dominant topic of conversation, so much so that sometimes I'd like to ignore it. But yeah, I suppose we got to talk about it at least a little. For me, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, yeah, did Kemper had a down year? Obviously, he didn't play up to his own standards or anybody's good standards. Of course, nobody, including himself, will argue that. And did we get a bargain with Charlie Lindgren? Hell yes, we did. So anybody that complains about the money, well, we really shouldn't, because you're spending $6 million a year on goaltending. Well, the Florida Panthers are spending double-digit millions on one guy, and he wasn't even statistically the best guy on his team, goaltending wise, if you look at raw stats. So I don't get it when people complain about money, but is Kemper not giving us our money's worth? No, but that's not the big thing here. I think if you're a Caps fan, instead of thinking about dealing him, because I don't think you're gonna find any takers, not just because he was not that good, but just because that contract of his, counting next year, has 3 years left on it. And the man is pushing 34 as it is. I think that contract takes him up to when he's 38 or 39. I just don't see anybody taking that contract right now. So if you're a Caps fan, I think what you ought to hope for is that he's going to have some sort of resurgence, which I think he's capable of.
Yes.
Because he was the first to admit he was not very good. He was not good enough. And if he's already got the support of his teammates, especially his partner, his own partner who says, yeah, he knows what he has to do. I think he's capable of it. And I mean, hopefully that's what happens. So that's what I'm looking for. But what were your thoughts on the goaltending beyond that?
I concur with what you've said, and I will just add that I believe that towards the end of the season there, when it was more Lindgren was the obvious one and Kemper was the obvious 1A,
Mm-hmm.
he played well the last 2-3 games I think he played.
Oh, yeah.
Where I had seen some scuttlebutt that I wasn't that I didn't think was insane, where people actually thought, after game 2, I think, well, maybe you give Lindgren a shot in game 3. The year we won the cup, the Grubauer was the hot hand going into the playoffs. We lost the first 2 games at home. Holtby, Ovi guaranteed we'd come back tied. They started Holtby in game 3, and thank goodness for, overtime, they ended up coming back victorious, and Holtby never looked back. But I thought that was certainly something that was a possibility. It didn't seem an insane thought to me that,
right.
Okay, well, Kemper's been in the playoffs before. He's been a Stanley Cup winning goalie before. He looked good the last couple starts that he did play. Let's see. I mean, at that point, you're down 0-2, house money still.
Right.
Why not throw him out there at your first home game? And that may have had something to do with it, too, giving Lindgren the chance to, play the first home game. I don't know. Who knows? But, yes, I think Kemper definitely, as a professional, as a Stanley Cup winning goalie, certainly has the potential to change and change the trajectory and have a bounce back season.
Yeah.
I think from everything that I've heard, it's sounding like with his age that Lindgren is not a starting goalie. He's going to be a career backup. So I don't know contractually where he's at, but I certainly don't see any reason to get rid of him if he's willing to stay.
Oh no. And now, if assuming now his contract runs through next year, and assuming they do decide to extend him, well, pardon me, he's due, I'm sure, something of a raise. And that's where it's going to get murky. And hopefully by then, it'll be a little bit more settled as far as can he, if he needs to, carry the team for 50, maybe even 60 games, counting playoffs, if that's necessary. And I think if there was a criticism I had of Lindgren, and this was my one overall fear of his, is that he had not come anywhere close in previous seasons to the workload he had to deal with this year. And that was that reality hit everybody in the face when the Caps hit their slump with about 7 or 8 games left, and it looked like at that point they weren't going to win another game and miss the playoffs. So, and I as much as I hated being right, that fear proved to be right. Now maybe he's not too old to the point where he figured out that what he needs to do to keep himself fresh over a stretch like that. But at the same time, that's why if you're a Caps fan, you're kind of hoping Kemper has a resurgence, because maybe it allows them to split the duties and lay it out a little bit more evenly, and then come the playoffs, if that's we're lucky enough to have that in the equation again next year, they figure out who starts and who doesn't. But that's my hope. But I don't want to make it sound like we're kind of rolling the dice here, but to me that would be a lot less of a gamble, is to see about what we've got and how that can improve within, versus just make a deal and send them off to whoever and see what we can get for them.
Correct.
That's my mind. So and once more, we're not neither one of us qualified GMs. We can play armchair GMs and have fun with it, but there's no way we can predict how a deal would turn out. I just, again, I just think, you go with what you got, see if you can improve from within. And I think that's what you're going to see come the off season, but who knows? I think it's going to be interesting either way, because they, as we mentioned earlier about some of the older guys, there's some decisions to be made for sure. So,
and the other thing too is look at the two young guys in net down in Hershey. Both of them, were superb this season for Hershey. So, we got stuff in the pipeline too, just like the forwards and the D-men we've been bringing up. We got goalies down there too.
Yeah, definitely. So that adds more fuel to the fire. What do you do going forward? I think as far as the goalies, I think next year is going to be where that's answered more permanently, because that's when Charlie's contract runs out. So I think they're going to be a more solid, solid decision as far as which goalies we go with from there on out. Okay, lots of good stuff there, Paul.
Yeah.
I think we're going to stop it here. Thanks a lot for doing this again, and we're going to. So just a little peek behind the curtain here. So this one, I actually recorded the regular episode with Anna earlier this morning.
I saw her post that.
So so that one's going to be posted either later tonight or tomorrow morning. And I got maybe two other guys who wanted to talk about the Caps. So going to do their interviews later on this coming week, and I'm going to splice everything together hopefully by the end of the week, and that'll be kind of a companion episode to the last one. So we'll air that on the old internets for everybody to hear at that point. But thanks a lot, Paul.
Great.
This was great.
Yeah, I had a lot more apparently to talk about than I was thinking. I was like, man, I'll be lucky if I can come up with 10 minutes of material for Gil.
you were great. This was great. A lot of stuff to think about. Some stuff that I didn't even think about before. So
glad to help, man. I wish I can give you more. Maybe this year I'll get more into contributing to your podcast. I have a lot of fun talking Caps. You and I could probably do another 30 minutes just going back and forth ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll if you've got time, love to have you on a few times more. I think we've had you on once or twice already. So
just the once. Yeah, this is second time.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah. Well, love to have you on again whenever you got time, anytime you want. So yeah.
Monitoring on via Facebook, and I'll be definitely. I don't know, my wife. I didn't want to say this on the podcast. My wife has anxiety issues and agoraphobia, so she crowds and going outside. That kind of irritates her, but she loves the Caps, so she makes the effort for that. But that's why we've scaled it back to just one game a year for us. That doesn't mean that I might not go to other games, and if I'm doing that, she may get the courage, for lack of a better term, she may be able to overcome her anxiety and come to another game or two.
Oh, trust me, that I totally get that. I got no problem with that. I get that. I know. A lot of my students at the school where I work at deal with that. So and some friends. So no, that's no bother at all. So I totally get that.
I wanted to go out. Looks like you guys had a good time at the watch party there. I wanted to go out and do that, but she wasn't down with that. And that was, you guys were there for the playoffs, right? One of the games.
This was the one of the last games, regular season games against Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was that Sunday.
Yeah.
And she didn't feel like going, so I didn't feel like. I mean, I wanted to stay there and watch the game with her, but I did want to go so I could meet some more of the gang, so to speak. So yeah, definitely, shoot me the instant messenger or whatever. Keep me in the loop for any meet and greets. And like I said, I'll follow on Facebook, and we'll definitely do more next season.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, thanks for doing this, and thanks for being a supporter of the show. Love it every time you throw in a comment or a like. Yeah, you're one of the great guys that we can count on to be there. And just want to say in person now that I got you, thank you so much for everything you do.
I'm glad to help, Dale. It's nice to be part of people of like interests like that. It's good to support each other through that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that was Mr. Paul Hackett with his thoughts on 2024. So that is going to do it for us here at the Triple P. Want to quickly thank everybody in one go for another great year. And yeah, like we've been saying, trust the process. And I think Caps are going to come out swinging and make us proud again in 2025. So it's going to be another kick-ass year. I hope you guys hang out with us, stay with us in the Facebook room and the chat room for some updates. And if there's anything big that happens in the off season, we might have a special episode. But other than that, this is Gil Hannibon, the blue liner on point, signing off, saying hit twine from the blue line. Enjoy.